Hey everyone, it's Colin with Legalized Mischief Productions. Thank you for joining me and welcome. Today I'm just doing a quick video to show how I paint white. I get asked this a lot, and so today I'm just going to do a quick video on my go-to white recipe and then talk about like a couple different ways at the end where you can maybe add some different interest, but in general this is just how I paint the overwhelming majority, especially airbrushing white if I want a cool white versus a warm white. But over time, there'll be different projects that have white and there may be some different recipes in there. But this is my go-to. If I need to paint something white, this is the recipe that I use. And this is not my own recipe. I stole this from Angel Giraldez in his Model Masterclass Volume 1. He had this recipe. It was a great looking recipe, so I borrowed it. And but credit where credit is due, I did not come up with this. So first is Game Color Somber Gray. We use that for the shadows. And then Game Color Wolf Gray. And you see it's a very, very, very light blue gray. Almost white, but not quite. And then for the last, we're going to use Model Color Pure White. I've used a ton of different white paints through the airbrush and through with the brush, trying to find one that doesn't spatter, that just works. And Vallejo Model Color is the most consistent one that I found. It has the best finish and the best applications, so that's the one I continue to use. So first we're going to go in with the Somber Gray. And I'm just thinning this with water. You want this to be relatively thin. So when I was priming, I primed the model black first, and then I primed it white, because white primer just does not adhere very well to plastic or resin for that matter, or metal for that matter. And the most important thing is to just get a nice even coat, because we are going to be working in really thin layers. And the black primer helps to just establish some of these shadows like really deep in the recesses. And you just get an overall kind of graying, like you can see there on the legs. It's almost like pre-shaded, but it wasn't intentional. But the white primer will cover the black primer really nicely, and you get a nice even coat that you can see there. That's not a very thick coat, but if I did it with just white, it would be hard to get a nice even appearance. So we're going to go in with the Somber Gray. And we're gonna do the shadows. It doesn't matter if we go a little bit heavy, but we're not doing an overall base coat, right? So we're just gonna come in here and concentrate on underneath the arms, back of the legs, back of the shoulder pads. And again, I use this for really anything that I paint white. You want to get back in there. It's going to end up being pretty much just an overall base coat, and that's fine. The white, the wolf gray, and the white are going to cover this for the most part. So we just want to make sure the most important thing is to get a nice even base coat, and really to flip the model upside down and really get underneath everything, because it's gonna look a little strange. Okay, so we ended up basically just doing an overall base coat. That's fine. You can see like a little bit of white left at the top, but basically the rest of this model is white. But again, that's fine. We're just not intentionally going all out on the. Oops. Yeah. We do, but we just want to make sure that we get those shadows established. There's not going to be a lot of Somber Gray still showing, but we do want to get a nice base coat to establish those shadows and to keep those shadows when we start going in with the lighter colors. And now the main color for this white is going to be this Wolf Gray from Vallejo Game Color, Wolf Gray. And that's going to be relatively thin, but we do want this to cover. The one thing I like about Wolf Gray, or one of the things I like about Wolf Gray, is it has very, very good coverage and it behaves really well coming out of the airbrush. And with the brush, it has fantastic coverage, so it's just a great color. It's very, very, very light. It'll look probably almost white on video until we add the white, and then you'll be able to see more of the difference. But again, we want this to be pretty thin. One of the challenges to making a white tutorial is it's really hard to photograph white or film white. It's hard to photograph white too, but it's really hard to film white. But I'll post a picture up on Facebook and Instagram and see if I can leave one in the comments of the Patreon post so you can see. It's easier to photograph it than it is to film it. Anyway, so we're going to start with the same, because we're doing the Space Marine, we're going to start with the same head, shoulders, knees, and toes, top of the backpack, top of the arms. So we just come in here, top of the backpack, shoulders, and we really want to go probably more, we want to go further back than we have in other mid-tones. So we want to go probably 75%, whereas before we'd stop maybe halfway. We really want to get back. We just want a little bit of that gray showing, not a lot. The dark gray, the somber gray, because the somber gray is so strong. We don't want this model to look gray. We want this model to look white. So to do that, we have to keep that somber gray really in the shadows. And so you can see there it's looking very, very light gray, but you still have those nice shadows on the back of the shoulders. You still have the nice shadows kind of underneath the arms there. And that'll inform the eye as you work. So they're not being completely obscured. They're definitely there. But we want to leave those top of the knee, top of the foot, a little bit on the inside of the leg, outside of the knee. And again, we're going to go a little higher with this than we normally would because we don't want this model to be dark gray. We want this model, at the end of this step, we want this model to be a majority light gray. And then when we come in with the white is where we'll really get a lot of mileage out of the highlights as well. But you can see on the underside of the leg, on the inside of the leg, you do have that darker gray. Kind of in the middle part of the torso, we still have that darker gray. So that's good. But we don't want too much of it. Just because, again, we want the overall impression to be white. We don't want the overall impression of this model to be gray or blue. So just like with the black, where we kind of eased up on the highlights to keep it looking black, with white, we're going to ease up on the shadows to keep it looking white. But they're absolutely necessary. I know it's happened to me many times when you get finished painting like a white model, and it just kind of looks just like it's white all over, because those shadows aren't pronounced enough. You just kind of lost them in the course of highlighting and the midtone. So we do want to keep them there. We do want to keep the midtone there. Now we're going to be using a true white, and again, this is Vallejo Model Color White thinned with water. Nothing super fancy, but you can see how thin that is. Very, very thin. And that's to keep it from spattering. And the Vallejo Model Color White just has really, really, really fine pigments, so it works really well. We're going to use this white as a highlight. This isn't going to be an overall, let's make the model white now. It's going to be a highlight. So, front of the helmet, top of the backpack, and now with that shoulder, we're really only going halfway again, like we would on a traditional color scheme. top of the arm, a little bit on the hip plate, top of the knee, top of the knee, top of the foot, come around the side a little bit. Don't get that hand that I always forget. Come around the side of it a little bit, back of the leg, back of the leg, top of the backpack, side of the leg, little hip plate there. And because this white is so thin, we can maybe hit the, whoops. Okay, so you see that, like, well, it's not showing up very well. There's a little bit of a circular, I hit that a little too hard, so I'm just going to come in on the side and just, I'm going to go like, whoops, I'm going to go like this, and I'm just going to pull back a little bit. You're not going to be able to see it on the paper, but I'm just going to pull back a little bit and just give it a little spritz to kind of even out. It's very, very faint, and it's not something, just like that, front of the helmet, top of the backpack, top of the shoulders, and really we're just reinforcing that white. So that's like, and so now you can see under there, shadows, you can see on the front of the legs, nice shadow inside of the legs, particularly on his right leg. That turned out really well. Back of the shoulder, middle of the torso, kind of bottom of the backpack, back of the leg. That shoulder pad turned out really well. So that, but that this model reads, whoops, this model reads as white. Like that's white power armor right there. That's not necessarily what I would use for, say, white scars. I mean, you certainly could. White scars, I think, use a warm white rather than a cold white. This is a cold white, the blue gray. At some point, I'll be doing a white scars tutorial as soon as I figure out their color scheme. I tried their armor once already, and it didn't turn out how I wanted it to, but I will be trying again, just not today. But the thing I like about this approach to doing white as well is then we go back with the Vallejo model color, and because this model wasn't just painted white, we can go in with that Vallejo model color with the brush, and because we were working with that white very, very thin, when we did do the highlights, we can go in with that model color white, and we can just use it as a highlight, as an edge highlight with white. And it'll still show up because it's the Vallejo model color white is more, these are chunky highlights. I am not using a great brush for this and not being as precise as I could, but precise, oh god, that was awful. Precise edge highlights is not the point of this video. I just want to show you the effect that highlighting with pure white has on this armor, because we didn't overwhelm the model with white during highlighting. So you can see on his front arm there, we use that white for an edge highlight. Same thing like on his helmet. And I know the contrast is just killing this on the video a lot, but you can see it. Yeah, you can see that. So you can see on his helmet there, the white still works to give an edge highlight, but it's very subtle. It's not super, super pronounced. It's gonna be more pronounced down here because there's less white on these panels. There's more of the gray, but even that wolf gray, you know, so down there you can see like on his knee area, we'll do this kind of part of his leg here so I can show you. So we get that white, and it just further reinforces the white, even on the back of the legs where we did more of the pure white. You can see that coming through, and I'll post pictures because it's not reading that well. And again, these highlights are pretty chunky, but you get the idea. Maybe if we do get some. What if we took out? Is this going to be crazy? The white background. I have to hold them so far away. Hang on. Sorry. Now I'm distracted by the fact that I want these highlights to show up. Just a quick. So you can see there, like on the backpack, maybe a softer light. On the backpack, it's showing up pretty well. You can see the arm a little better. So it's not overwhelming amount of highlights, but you can see there, that's a little better. Especially like down on the leg, down on the foot. That white is showing up, but we really want it to be subtle. Most important thing is for this to stay subtle. So that's my white, and it also helps that we prime black because you can see those recesses and stuff. Me personally, I would do an oil wash on white to get into all those crevices and everything. If you don't want to do that, you can use like a blue, this Secret Weapon Miniatures blue black is really good for using on white. It gives it a very, I used it on the on like Pyros's bolter casing, on the Iron Hands bolter casing. So you can go in there and give a little pin wash of this blue black. I like this from Secret Weapon because it's more like a glaze. It's not just a wash. But that is going to make it, whoops. That is going to make it more of a bluish white. Wow, what happened to that focus? I'm sorry. So it is going to make it more of that bluish white. And it is an unholy pain to go in and just do panel lines basically on all these little spots here. But if you don't mind doing that and you're looking for a good color, this blue black is a good one to use. So you can see we're getting some definition in those panels. But personally, I usually do an oil wash when it comes to doing white, just because it's so easy and it keeps the surface clean, it keeps it looking white, and then it's just easy. It takes 1/10 of the time that trying to go in and panel wash everything. So that is white. Hope that made sense. It really is that easy. I mean, you can get away with just those three colors on white and have a really nice looking white. But depending on your scheme, you can experiment. That was a really huge highlight. Don't do that. So you can experiment with different washes, different glazes for the panel. That looks good. for the panel lines. But in general, if you're going to be doing a lot of white, oil washing is a good technique to pick up because it's just going to make your life so much easier. So that's it. That's all we have for the white video. I wanted to keep it short. Ran a little long, but that's okay. So that's how I paint white. Hope you enjoy. Hope that is beneficial. And we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.